Hello, and welcome back to the channel. When Americans think of World War II in the Pacific, they usually picture aircraft carriers, island landings, and fierce naval battles stretching across thousands of miles of ocean. But long before bombs fell and torpedoes struck, another battle was already underway. A silent war fought with pencils, filing cabinets, and extraordinary patience. In the early 1940s, the Imperial Japanese Navy believed its communications were secure. Their most important naval code, known to U.S. intelligence as JN-25, was considered unbreakable. It used complex codebooks combined with numerical additives that changed regularly. Japanese commanders trusted it completely. That confidence would prove fatal. Because while Japanese admirals planned operations across the Pacific, a small group of American cryptanalysts, many of them civilians, some barely known outside intelligence circles, were slowly learning to read Japan's most closely guarded secrets. This is the story of how the United States cracked the Japanese naval code, and how intelligence, not firepower, turned the tide of the Pacific War. Long before Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Navy understood that future wars would be decided not only by ships and guns, but by information. In the 1920s and 1930s, American cryptography advanced quietly. One of its early pioneers was William F. Friedman, often called the father of American cryptology. Under his influence, both the Army and Navy began building professional code-breaking units. By the late 1930s, the Navy's cryptologic effort was centered in OP-20G, a classified section within naval intelligence. When Japan expanded aggressively in Asia, American analysts began intercepting Japanese naval radio traffic across the Pacific. The messages were encrypted, but patterns emerged: call signs, transmission habits, and operational rhythms. Even without full decryption, intelligence officers learned where Japanese fleets were operating. After Pearl Harbor, the stakes changed overnight. The U.S. Navy desperately needed to understand Japanese intentions, and cracking their main operational code became an urgent national priority. The Japanese Naval Code JN-25 was not a simple cipher. It consisted of a code book of over 30,000 phrases, each represented by a 5-digit number. That number was then disguised using a second set of random numerical additives. Without both parts, the message was meaningless. To American codebreakers, early JN-25 messages looked like pure noise. But cryptanalysis is a war of attrition. Analysts began identifying recurring number groups tied to known phrases like aircraft carrier, sortie, or attack. Each partial success chipped away at the code. Progress was slow and frustrating. Additives changed regularly. New codebooks appeared. But by early 1942, American analysts could partially read some operational messages, enough to suggest something big was coming. What they needed was confirmation. At the heart of the breakthrough was Station Hypo, a naval intelligence unit based in Pearl Harbor. Its commander, Commander Joseph Rochefort, was unconventional, stubborn, and brilliant. He ignored protocol, wore slippers at work, and trusted his analysts over Washington bureaucracy. In the spring of 1942, Hypo intercepted messages referring to a target called AF. Rochefort believed AF was Midway Island. Washington wasn't convinced. So Rochefort devised a test. Midway was instructed to broadcast an unencrypted message stating its freshwater system had failed. Shortly afterward, Japanese intercepts reported that AF is short of water. The argument was over. The Japanese were planning an attack on Midway, and the United States now knew when and where it would happen. Armed with decrypted intelligence, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz made a bold decision. Though outnumbered, he positioned his aircraft carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, northeast of Midway, exactly where Japanese carriers would appear. On June 4, 1942, American dive bombers caught the Japanese fleet at its most vulnerable moment, decks loaded with aircraft and fuel. Within minutes, 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were fatally damaged. Midway was not luck, it was intelligence. The battle marked the first decisive defeat of the Imperial Japanese Navy and permanently shifted the balance of power in the Pacific. Cracking JN-25 did not end with Midway. Throughout the war, U.S. cryptanalysts continuously adapted as Japan updated its codes. Intelligence from decrypted messages guided submarine patrols, ambushes, and airstrikes. One of the most famous results came in 1943, when intercepted messages revealed the travel plans of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor. His aircraft was intercepted and shot down, a targeted blow made possible entirely by signals intelligence. By 1945, Japan's naval communications were so compromised that Allied commanders often knew Japanese plans before Japanese units executed them. The Pacific War had become an intelligence war, and the U.S. was winning it decisively. The story of cracking the Japanese naval code is not a tale of spies in trench coats or dramatic interrogations. It is a story of persistence, logic, teamwork, and quiet brilliance. Thousands of men and women, many sworn to lifelong secrecy, helped bring the war to an end faster and with fewer American lives lost. For decades, their work remained classified. Only later did historians understand just how decisive code-breaking had been. In World War II, victory did not always belong to the side with the biggest guns. Sometimes it belonged to those who could read the enemy's mail. Thank you for watching. If you value serious, fact-based history of the Second World War, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.